You're listening to Career Ready, and I'm Coach K. Getting you ready for your corporate career. Today on Career Ready, we will be discussing the last of the 5 interview mistakes that I've personally seen and experienced in my career. And that is number 5, not having any follow-up questions for your interview panel. Now, why is this so important to have these follow-up questions? Remember that how you end your interview will set the tone for how they remember you. You want the panel to remember you as being intelligent, interested in them and the company you're interviewing for, as well as being perceived as a forward thinker. A really good way to do this is simply by asking questions at the end of your interview. And you can take in your notebook to an interview with your prepared questions that you want to know about the company, the industry, or the team that you'll be a part of. So I've put together a list today in this session of possible questions that you can ask, and I've grouped them into different categories. So listen closely, get your pen if you need to take these down. But the first category is questions that will give you an idea of the team and the culture dynamic of the company or of the team, okay? And the first question that you can ask is, what type of management style have you found is most effective in your team? Question 2, what other departments or teams would I be working closely with? Number 3, what is the information sharing relationship between our shared departments or teams? And the last question is, how often does the team meet or gather to discuss the team's roadmaps or requirements? Now, why are these questions good? Asking these kind of questions is a clever way of getting to understand the actual team dynamic without really having as much information. The second category of questions that you can ask are questions about the actual role that you will be doing or playing within the team or organization. And one of the first questions you can ask is, why has this role become available? Did the previous person resign, move internally, or were they let go? Number 2, can you give me an idea of what kind of a person is typically successful in this role? Number 3, what have been your pressure or pain points for this role that you would like me coming in to help resolve? Number 4, what is a typical workday look like for someone in this role? And another question that you can ask is, how much time do you normally expect someone to spend completing a task in this role? Now, these questions are particularly important because they will tell you exactly what is going to be required of you in this role realistically. Not what the job spec says is required of the role, but what you will actually be experiencing if you come on board. The third category of questions, and these are about your career growth and development within the organization. These questions are important because you want to know whether or not they expect you to stay in that position for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, or whether or not they're really going to take you on board and train you and develop you for something more and better and greater. So there are 3 questions that you can ask in this category. The first one, how long does a person typically stay in this role in your team before being considered senior or being promoted? What type of training or further educational options does the company offer? And what is the typical turnover for members in this team? The last category of questions that you guys can answer are questions that are about the interview process or outcome. And there are a few questions here that you can ask, with the last one actually being my favorite question. But let's get into question 1 first, which is, what are the next steps from here and when can I expect to hear back from you? Who should I contact if I have any further questions? Can I expect feedback whether I'm successful or not? So you really want to know whether or not you were successful if you're going into the next round, and it is your job to keep following up with them, okay? And lastly, my favorite question, which you absolutely have to ask in any interview so that you can settle any unease or uncertainty in the room with the interview panel in front of you before you leave. This gives you a chance to discuss any of these issues that they might have with you, and you can defend yourself as well while you're still in the room with them. Do you have any concerns with my answers or my CV that you would like me to clarify before we conclude today? It seems like such a simple question, but it is so powerful. So don't forget to ask that question in your interview, guys. You don't have to ask all of the questions that I gave you today. These are just examples of some of the questions that you can ask in an interview. And if you had a really final golden question that you have to ask, do you remember what it was? Do you have any concerns with my answers or my CV that you would like me to clarify before we conclude today? Well, that's it for this week, guys. I hope that you've learned a few things during our short time together. I hope that this information helps you to empower yourself just a little bit more in your upcoming interviews. I know you're going to do great. So go out there and empower your purpose.